Anybody remember any of them? Go ahead, dear Joy. Joy, no? Yeah, go ahead, Joy. Say one thing. The olive branch petition. Who wanted that? Who wanted the olive branch petition? What delegate? Yes?
Charles Dickinson.
Charles Dickinson. That was the guy that wrote the book. John Dickinson, right? Charles Dickinson, John Dickinson. We'll keep that off YouTube. Cut it on YouTube. All right, so anyway, it was John Dickinson, right? What is he saying to you? What is he saying to you?
Some secret code.
He's talking about time.
What is the time on
It's 30 minutes. You're wasting time.
Yeah. I'll hurry, yes.
Maybe like a million comments on the last
What's it say?
Old
Old man, heavy-set bald-head guy on the YouTube. Get off the technology, old man. Get there in the senior center where you belong. All right. Okay. So, anyways, back to the topic of our discussion. What was the topic of our discussion? What were we talking about? Second Continental. So, olive branch petition, causes and necessities of taking up arms, the appointment of Washington as Commander-in-Chief of the military. Is there discussion of independence in the Second Continental Congress? No. What does it take? Now, the Second Continental Congress it meets in the summer of 75. They seek independence in the summer of 76. What's the big turning point? What did we say the big turning point was for independence? Go ahead, dear Natalie over there. There's Natalie over here, Natalie over there. Go ahead, Natalie. What turned the tide of public opinion towards independence? The publication of
Common Sense.
Common Sense, which was written by Thomas Paine. Now, just quickly, in terms of the actual Revolutionary War, the Revolutionary War starts at Concord and Lexington to some extent. The Battle of Bunker Hill is in June of 75, right? In June of 75. That's the Battle of Bunker Hill. The Battle of Bunker Hill is a battle in New England. So what we would say is the first part of the Revolutionary War is fought in New England. But the British evacuate New England in March of 1776. And then they return in the summer of 1776. Right? They return months later. But when they return, where do they invade? So the war starts in New England. The British troops are unable to subdue the colonists in New England. They withdraw in March of 1776, the British do, from Boston. When they come back in July, where do they go? Not yet. Yes, New York. So the first part of the war is in New England. The second part of the war is in the middle colonies. Right? Their offensive in New York ends with the Battle of Saratoga. What year was that? Battle of Saratoga is October of, Mike, not the dates are terribly important, but October of 77. When they fail at Saratoga, in the spring of 78, where do they go? Now, Nicoletta, the South. They are in the South from 78 until 81. 81 is the surrender at Yorktown. So the Revolutionary War starts in New England, goes to the middle colonies, ends in the South. Is that correct? Where's the most important battle in that whole sequence? Is it Bunker Hill? No. It is, what is it, Thomas?
Saratoga.
Saratoga. Why is that the most important battle?
It brings the French into the whole conflict.
It brings the French into the conflict, and the French assistance is crucial to American success in the war. Now, let's talk about the Declaration. I mean, that's the war. We kind of went off track a little bit, but those parts of that are on the test. Let's talk about the Declaration of Independence a little bit. The purpose of the Declaration of Independence was to state, to explain to the world why the American colonists were going to do what they were going to do. It is catapulted, dear Nicoletta, by Common Sense, the movement for independence. Some of the other British actions also sort of convinced the colonists that this is the only option. Hey, let me ask you this. When eventually the Declaration of Independence is written and signed, or written, debated, and eventually signed, does everyone agree with it? No. What are the people who disagree with independence called? That disagree, and not only disagree with independence, but decide to support the British in the conflict. Go ahead, Nicola. Loyalists. What are the people who, well, the people who support the cause are called patriots. The loyalists are also called Tories, right? Patriots are also called Whigs. But the purpose of independence was, or the purpose of the Declaration of Independence was to explain the cause, why the colonists were doing what they're doing, and attempting to rally support domestically and from foreign powers and in England to the cause. And, certainly the general argument of the Declaration of Independence is that Americans had rights, just like all people, and that the purpose of government was to secure those rights, and that Britain had not done that. Not only had they not secured it, but they had been injurious to them. Who did they blame in particular? The long list of usurpations, they call. Oh, Natalie, I don't want you to hurt yourself. You had that hand up there. Go ahead. Yes, they named what was the king's name, just for fun?
George III.
George III. Yes, George III was the king. All right. The aid that the French provided the American colonists was crucial to the American success. Like it or not, French aid was crucial, right, to American success. And we talked a little bit about that. The Battle of Yorktown essentially ends the Revolutionary War. And we spent a little time talking about that interim period between Yorktown and eventually the Treaty of Paris. What was the big result of the Treaty of Paris, 83? The big result of the treaty. Go ahead, Daniel. Yes, America was recognized as an independent country. The borders of the country were also established. The west was Mississippi, the south Florida, the north Canada, the east the Atlantic, right? Now, we did talk about the changes that occurred in the aftermath of the Revolution. And we said that, well, look, there weren't dramatic changes in many areas, but one area where there was some movement was in the area of slavery. And that Americans recognized the inconsistency between the premises and principles of the Declaration of Independence and the existence of African slavery. And it's sort of interesting, they struggled with that in the Declaration of Independence. They struggled with it in the aftermath of the Revolution. They struggled with it in the Constitutional Convention. But despite the fact that they struggled with slavery in all of those contexts, slavery is going to survive. I mean, slavery is going to take a hit because of the Revolution. And it's not only, the principles of the Declaration of Independence, it's the attempt by the Americans and British to lure slaves into their respective militaries. It is the opportunity of war that allows people to sort of escape, slaves to escape. So there are lots of elements that results in a number of American slaves being freed. In fact, I was reading something, Kelly McMaster's, and I'm sure no one's interested, but I'll tell you kids anyways. I was reading something that said that the large loss of slave labor was one of the things that contributed to the post-war kind of economic chaos. That when you lose 10% of slave labor, which represented significant property, that contributed greatly to some of the problems in the aftermath of the war. And we did talk about those problems in the aftermath of the war. And we also talked about sort of the American attempt in the aftermath of the war to establish government on every level that is going to be consistent with the principles of the Declaration of Independence. Now, we spoke extensively about the Articles of Confederation. And we said the Articles of Confederation were the first attempt that the Americans established at some sort of central government prior to the Declaration of Independence. I mean, I don't know that it's the first attempt because Franklin tries it in 1754. But this is the first attempt at a central government after the Declaration of Independence. We talked about the Articles of Confederation. We said it came from a committee that was headed by John Dickinson. We said that committee presented the articles to Congress and approved them in 77, but Congress, or the individual states, did not ratify the articles until 81. What took so long, dear Hal Josma, for all 13 states to ratify the Articles of Confederation? Yeah, because of the land claims in the West that we talked about extensively and even reviewed today. Just tell me one bad thing, one limitation of the article of Congress under the Articles of Confederation. Just one negative. Go ahead, Malcolm.
To make amends.
Yes, you needed all 13 states to fix the document, right? Which results, I mean, if you think about it, we talk